Part 45. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 453. Kurosawa Hikaru and Ninomiya Chizuru acted together and soon arrived at the Mercedes-Benz Ford's dealership in Roppongi, Tokyo. Welcome, two guests, what service do you need? As they arrived, a female salesperson came up to greet them. This female salesperson was young and beautiful, wearing an OL suit, with a slim and beautiful figure, a pair of black silk legs that were extremely pleasing to the eye, and a warm smile on her face. The service spirit of Japan is very strong, not only service, but also better hospitality. In fact, with the development of the times, everyone's nature is very lazy, but they have to follow this tradition. The seniority system of Japanese people and the culture of predecessors and successors are terrible. It is no exaggeration to say that every office worker has been treated harshly by his superiors on the road from juniors to seniors under the lifetime employment system. Men will be scolded and insulted in various ways, and women may even be subject to unspoken rules. Schools, companies, and society are all like this, which is also the fundamental reason why the social atmosphere in Japan is very depressing. Everyone has accumulated an unknown amount of pressure in their hearts. Because of this, when they changed their identities and became customers, they would be particularly harsh on the waiters. If they were not doing their job properly, they would scold and insult them without hesitation, or even complain. As long as you dare to make me unhappy, I will not let you have an easy time. Buy a car. Kurosawa Hikaru was not very particular about this kind of culture of seniors and juniors. He took a look at her and made his intention clear. Yes, please follow me. The saleswoman heard him speak, lowered her head and responded, stepped aside, and invited him respectfully. Before she agreed, she was also looking at the two guests. They were wearing masks and their full faces could not be seen clearly, but even so, they only showed their eyebrows and eyes, but they had extraordinary temperament, handsome men and beautiful women. Maybe their clothes were not famous brands, but they were either rich or noble when they raised their hands and feet. Whose noble son is this? Through his words, the saleswoman realized that this man was the boss, and looked at the masked beauty again, and couldn't help but secretly said. Just by looking at her eyebrows, she could feel that the woman holding the man's arm was definitely a super beauty, wearing a mask to cover her face, she might be an idol star. She had seen too many times that the second-generation rich brought his girlfriend to buy a car, but she did not look down on it or be arrogant. Because the social status of Japanese women plummeted after the feminist movement was defeated. To be frank, most women, no matter how hard they work, are far inferior to men in terms of salary and benefits. If they are willing to work on their backs, they can go straight up. I am a salesperson in this store, Nami, what are your names? After making a judgment in her heart, the female salesperson took them to a sofa area and sat down, and then she squatted down in front of the two people, stroking her skirt and asked. This is the squatting service in Japan, which emphasizes that the customer is God. For them, doing this kind of thing with all their heart and soul, they will not have the idea of humiliation at all, but will be proud of it. As she squatted and kneeled to serve, Ninomiya Chizuru looked down and saw that her plumpness was difficult to cover under the shirt, her collarbone was pleasing to the eye, and her sexy black silk legs, and she couldn't help but look at Kurosawa Hikaru beside her. Although the squatting service of neon, under different clothes, some uniforms are particularly pleasing to the eye, which can be said to be a feast for the eyes. Kurosawa. However, Kurosawa Hikaru had expected it and didn't look at her at all, his eyes were always on Chizuru beside him. If you want to buy a car, you must sign a contract, and your real name will be exposed sooner or later. Mr. Kurosawa, do you have a favorite car model when you come to the car dealership this time? Maybach, do you have a car in stock? After considering the brand of Mercedes-Benz, Kurosawa Hikaru only has this one. Maybe Mercedes-Benz still has the romance of men like the G-Class, but this car is too big and it will be too conspicuous when driving on the street. If possible, he wants a supercar, such as Lamborghini, Ferrari, and other supercars, but driving a supercar is like being afraid that others will not notice you. Relatively speaking, Maybach is a relatively low-key model. At first glance on the street, even if you know it is not cheap, it will not attract a lot of attention. This is a second-rate choice. After all, being too high profile is not a good thing. The key is that his body is crooked and his shadow is slanted. If it is too conspicuous, it will be troublesome if people find out that he is cheating on multiple people. It depends on the model you like. Don't worry, our car dealership has a quota. Even if there is no car in stock, we can produce it for you as soon as possible. When the female salesperson heard the word Maybach, she couldn't help showing joy on her face. She was no longer calm in her heart, but she still maintained a serious attitude and did not lose control. Maybach is known as the Mobile Palace. This is the top model of Mercedes-Benz, positioned in the high-end luxury car market, the highest level of the world's automobile industry. Even the cheapest Maybach is tens of millions of yen. In any Mercedes-Benz Force store in the world, Maybach is the top model. If she sells a Maybach, her sales performance and commission for this month will be very considerable. Do you have the latest S680? I want to see it. Kurosawa Hikaru thought about it and made a request. Buying a car is not a trivial matter. For men, even if it is not as important as getting married, it is not much different. Even more, most men are more enthusiastic about buying a car than getting married. Okay, please wait a moment, I need to leave for a while to get something. The saleswoman was delighted to see his unhesitating attitude. She left a word and turned around and left. Even though she was wearing high heels, she trotted all the way, fearing that she would be neglected. Not long after, they followed the saleswoman to a Maybach. Following her footsteps, Kurosawa Hikari soon saw a car. At just one glance, Kurosawa Hikari's eyes were attracted. It was so beautiful. This is a little more high profile than I thought. Although he was amazed, Kurosawa Hikari was also muttering in his heart. His judgment was correct. Maybach is indeed more low-key than supercars, but at first glance, the latest S680 is long and beautiful, and the rate of turning heads on the street is probably not low. The lines of the car body are very handsome and extremely smooth, and the large wheel design is very individual. At first glance, it is a luxury car with a high price. Do you like it? As he looked at it, Ninomiya Chizuru, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke after taking a few glances. It feels good, it's pretty, what do you think? Kurosawa Hikaru carefully examined the car and pondered. It's pretty good, so let's buy this one. Ninomiya Chizuru has never had a demand for luxury cars. The key is to see his preferences and find that his reaction seems to like this car very much, so naturally he will follow his wishes. Let's test drive it first. Although it is not as low-key as expected, Kurosawa Hikaru is still moved. As long as it is not a supercar, it is not so high profile. And if you can't drive a supercar, you can't drive a luxury car, right? If he doesn't enjoy life, what is he working hard for? Isn't it better to just lie down? The female saleswoman Nami, who was smiling and serving on the side, was suddenly stunned when she heard this. The next moment, she looked at the woman who had been holding Kurosawa Hikaru's arm since entering the store in shock. Judging from this conversation, it seems that it is not the second-generation rich who brought his girlfriend to buy a car today, but the rich woman who brought her young boyfriend to buy a car. Ms. Nami, I want to test drive it? Kurosawa Hikaru didn't know her mental journey, but just made a request. Yes. Realizing that he wanted to test drive, the saleswoman naturally agreed and immediately walked forward to open the door for him. Although she is more than 1.8 meters tall, The biggest feature of the S680 is that the interior space is sufficient. Just buy this one. After a simple test drive, Kurosawa Hikaru was very satisfied. What is the price of this car? Ninomiya Chizuru nodded slightly and looked at the saleswoman. It depends on your options to set the price. This one is the latest model, and the bare car price is 70 million yen. As she asked the price, the saleswoman's heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. Although Mercedes-Benz is the best-selling imported car in Japan, this level of luxury car, looking at Japan, can't sell many units a year. After saying that, she was also observing the expressions of the two customers. Although they were wearing masks, the biggest expression of a person's expression is still reflected in their eyes. But what excited her was that when they heard the price, the two customers did not look strange at all, as if 70 million yen was nothing to them. Converted into the money of the previous life, according to the current exchange rate of 19:1, is at nearly 4 million. Hearing this price, Kurosawa Hikaru was thoughtful and couldn't help but convert it in his mind. Miss Runa's car was only 12 million yen, compared with this car, the price difference is not a little bit. Of course he would not be surprised. Before the concert, any contract he signed was more than this amount. Is there an option list? What is the price of the top configuration? Ninomiya Chizuru asked without even blinking. For the top configuration, the price is about 120 million. The female salesperson's voice trembled a little when she said this. She has been in this business for 6 years. The most expensive car she has sold before was only about 40 million, a price of over 100 million is something she never dreamed of. No need. Although Kurosawa Hikaru likes cars, he frowned when he heard that the price was over 100 million. If it is necessary, buy the best one, and you can still take me in the future after buying this car. Ninomiya Chizuru shook her head and hugged his arms tightly. In fact, when a person's wealth reaches a certain level, it becomes a number. She doesn't know where to spend her money except for investing and making money from money. Now that she is finally with Kurosawa, it doesn't matter if she spends all her money on him. Anyway, she has spent all her money, and her parents are backing her up. Okay. Seeing that she has made up her mind, Kurosawa Hikaru thought about it and didn't stop her. At worst, when he has money in the future, he will buy her a yacht, a plane, etc. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 454. After filling in the information and swiping the card, Ninomiya Chizuru made another request, which was to ask the people at the Ford store to help Kurosawa handle the parking space, license plate, insurance, and other issues. The top model of Maybach needs to be customized, and even if there is a quota, it will take about a week to pick up the car. In addition, Ninomiya Chizuru also bought an 8 million Mercedes-Benz with no special options. Although buying the best for Kurosawa, she is not very particular about her own consumption. Neon's car purchase system is relatively complicated, and it is difficult to pick up the car on site. A distinguished customer of this level alerted all the shop assistants when he paid the bill. Considering the customer's experience, the store manager directly provided them with a Mercedes-Benz C-Class as a scooter, signed the contract, and let them drive away. Welcome our two distinguished guests to visit us next time. When they walked out of the Ford store, all the sales and managers of the store came to the door and bowed to see them off. The store manager also ran out to see them off. What's the situation? Customers who were looking at the car in the store, or who were really planning to enter the store, saw this scene, and they all looked sideways and became curious. No matter how much attention everyone paid to him, Ninomiya Chizuru was not afraid. She wore a mask, makeup, and a wig, so no one could recognize her. This car is not bad either. After walking out of the Ford's shop, Kurosawa Hikaru sat in the driver's seat, held the steering wheel and tried out the feel. As one of the most successful high-end car brands in the world, Mercedes-Benz has perfect technology and excellent quality standards, and every car can bring a good driving experience. Maybe it's not as good as the Maybach, but the experience of this mobility scooter is also very good. It's a pity that we can't pick up the car directly. It will take 7 days at the earliest. Ninomiya Chizuru came to the passenger seat and sat down, closing the door. Her posture when getting into the car was very elegant, and her long legs stretched into the car, which was very eye-catching. This is the advantage of the figure. With a model-like figure, every move of her hands and feet is full of charm. It's good to have a mobility scooter. At least you don't have to take a taxi. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't care about this and smiled. Although the experience of taking a taxi is very pleasant, the benefits of owning a car cannot be explained in a few words. What is certain is that unless it is an official tracing, if you drive around alone, others will not know where you are going. You can also quickly move to a location to avoid being tracked to a great extent. That's true. Ninomiya Chizuru nodded, agreeing with this statement. After deciding the matter, he started the car. Although the purpose of the next stop had not yet been decided, he still decided to set off first. The purpose of today was to buy a car or a house, but due to the delay in buying the car, it was almost 1 p.m., so they went to eat first. Considering that she had to take off her mask when eating, Ninomiya Chizuru chose a higher-end restaurant with private rooms. After ordering, they waited patiently and did not start eating immediately. After the waiter had completely served the dishes, they took off their masks and officially started eating. Sister Kinhee, may I ask how much savings you have? Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and asked. Not counting the stock market and investment money, there is still 900 million in the bank card. Ninomiya Chizuru didn't understand why he asked, but she still told her family background. Buying a villa is different from buying a car, and in Tokyo, the price of a house is very high. A villa with a slightly better location, decoration, and area will cost hundreds of millions and upwards. That's why she didn't care about the money to buy the car. Rich woman. Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but be surprised to hear that she had so much money aside from the stock market. Including the previous funds to start the office and the purchase of a car this time, in other words, Sister Chizuru's previous savings exceeded 1 billion yen. The top students from the University of Tokyo are extraordinary. It is worth mentioning that investment and entrepreneurship are not the same concept. Because investment relies on dividends, it is often about finding a company that is well run and whose managers are trustworthy. Sister Kinhee's parents make so much money, making billions a year, because they are bankers, have a larger intelligence network, and know more corporate information. Sister Kinhee, we won't be looking at the villa later. How about looking for a house with a garage? After thinking about it, Kurosawa suggested. Don't you want a villa? In fact, the villa is not expensive, so you don't have to worry. After Ninomiya Chizuru thought about it for a while, she comforted her. Although she can't buy the best one like buying a car, it is still very easy to buy a villa in Tokyo with good overall values. I'm not worried, I just want to return the gift. Kurosawa Hikaru realized that she had misunderstood and shook his head. No need to return the gift. This car today is what I said I would give to you before. If you don't buy a villa, when I get rich, I can give you a villa. If you have a villa, then I can only buy you yachts and airplanes. No need for yachts, I'm not interested in that kind of thing. Then I have nothing to give you. Seeing that she was unwilling and completely uninterested in things like yachts, Kurosawa suddenly had a headache. Ever since his relationship with Kinzuru broke that boundary, Kinzuru was basically the one spending money on him, which made him feel like he was being given free rein. Although it is quite pleasant to be a gigolo, he knows one thing very well, that is, reciprocity, everyone is happy, and the relationship can be long-lasting and stable. What made him feel indebted was that Chizuru quit her job as a teacher at the University of Tokyo to be with him, and was forced to work in a bank. In order not to leave him, she chose to compromise and accept his cheating. In contrast, he has made a lot of compensation to other girlfriends. Who said you have nothing to give me? You have already given it to me. Seeing that he was still frowning, Chizuru Ninomiya seemed to care about this matter, and suddenly smiled. Because of makeup, wigs, and eye makeup, she, who usually looks very cold, looks particularly gentle today. What did I give you? Kurosawa Hikari naturally noticed her changes, but did not care, but asked. Adeline by the water. Seeing that he had not reacted yet, Chizuru Ninomiya opened her cherry lips slightly and said a name. That doesn't count, these are completely different things. Hearing this, Hikari Kurosawa shook his head on the spot. Why not? It's the best gift in the world, much better than the car I gave you. When Chizuru Ninomiya saw his reaction, she was a little unhappy. For her, the gift of Adeline at the waterside is the only one in the world, and it is incomparable. Because Adeline at the waterside brought her the most amazing experience and unrepeatable time. When Kurosawa played the song as a special guest in his first public performance, she almost cried in the audience. As the protagonist of the concert, Kurosawa's second public performance also brought her a unique experience as the heroine. With such an experience, luxury cars, villas, yachts and other vulgar things are not even qualified to be compared. Not to mention, Kurosawa is willing to be with her, which brings her heartbeat and happiness. As a boyfriend, and I'm a pianist, isn't it natural for me to give you a piano piece to make you happy? Then as a girlfriend, and I have money, isn't it natural for me to give you a car to make you happy? Okay. Faced with her rebuttal, Kurosawa Hikaru paused for a few seconds and was speechless. Everyone has their own ideas, and denying other people's views and preferences is actually very rude. And he reacted, just as he thought that giving a song to Chizuru's sister was something that didn't require a return. I'm afraid Chizuru also thought so. And even if I have a villa, you can buy me a villa. Seeing his concession, Ninomiya Chizuru hesitated for a few seconds and said. She didn't like to argue with Kurosawa. After all, it's not a good thing to verbally pressure others. Is it okay? Kurosawa Hikaru was a little confused. Of course, for example, I have a villa in Tokyo, but I can also have a villa in a place like Hakone that is suitable for hot spring vacations. Ninomiya Chizuru nodded slightly and explained. Yes. Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned for a moment, and suddenly he realized it. Who stipulated that Chizuru can only have one villa? As long as you have money, you can buy a house anywhere in the world. It seems that although he has various skills and has experienced a completely different life, his concept of money has changed and he no longer values it as much as before. But he is too young after all, and he has not really experienced the life of a rich person, so his way of thinking has not changed all of a sudden. If that's the case, even if he goes to buy a villa today, he can still buy a villa for Chizuru in the future. Right. Seeing his happy face, Ninomiya Chizuru smiled. In fact, she really didn't want Kurosawa to spend money on her. As long as he had this intention, she would be very happy. However, according to the current situation, if she didn't agree, I'm afraid Kurosawa would be unhappy. During the conversation, lunch was quickly settled. In the afternoon, they drove to see the villa. In terms of buying a house, Ninomiya Chizuru is very experienced. Although she doesn't know much about the entertainment industry, she must understand real estate when studying finance. After all, real estate is a very important industry for investment. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 455. Find a trustworthy intermediary company, check the house type through a tablet, inspect the house on site, sign the contract and swipe your credit card. In less than an hour and a half, the affairs of the villa were settled. Thank you so much. The sales lady held a contract and bowed excitedly to a car. She has been in the business for many years, and this is the first time she has met a customer who buys a house so efficiently. The identities of these two guests are very mysterious, and they both wear masks. The rich woman's name is Ninomiya Chizuru, and the name of the accompanying man is unknown. The reason why I know the name is because the person who signed the contract is Ninomiya Chizuru. This name impressed her. To be precise, she was extremely excited. Because when signing the contract, documents were required, and she saw the appearance in the ID photo, and it was Miss Adelina. Although she recognized her identity, she was very conscious and would not expose this matter. After all, this was a distinguished guest who bought a luxury villa. The total price is 470 million yen. It has complete furniture and electrical appliances, luxurious decoration, a courtyard, an outdoor swimming pool, 8 rooms and 8 independent bathrooms. There are 4 floors in total. Each floor has a public toilet and is also equipped with an elevator. An underground garage. It is no exaggeration to say that this house can be moved in directly with a bag, as long as you bring a change of clothes and daily necessities. Because it is a single-family villa, not a villa area, the location is also very good. From today on, as long as you commute by car, you don't have to worry about being followed or meeting perverted perverts. After leaving the agency, Kurosawa Hikaru was driving while holding the steering wheel. He had solved a problem on his mind and was in a good mood. Since the official announcement of their relationship, Chizuru's fame as her zero-time girlfriend has become so great that it can be said that it surpasses most celebrities, idols, and public figures. Basically, she will be recognized wherever she goes. This is not a bad thing, because it is a result that has been foreseen long ago, but the bad thing is that her address has been exposed, because she is not a professional artist, but was a teacher at Dongda University before that. Maybe the teacher's address, students and parents of students generally don't know, but someone will tell about the beautiful neighbor who suddenly became popular all over the country overnight. Maybe someone was asked, or maybe someone couldn't help but show off, saying that they lived in the same apartment as Adelina and had met her many times. Perhaps Chizuru has not encountered stalkers or perverts, which are extremely rare and dangerous incidents. After all, this era is a society governed by the rule of law. But if something happens, it's too late to say anything. This is why we must take precautions and take precautions before they happen. Actually, your thinking is too exaggerated. Although I am very famous now, I have never been followed by anyone. Ninomiya Chizuru was a little amused when she saw that he was worried about her safety. She has lived for so many years without ever encountering any danger. On the other hand, there was a pervert in front of her. He was kissing sweetly and happily, but his hands were not honest at all. It didn't happen before, but it doesn't mean it won't happen in the future. Anyway, you have to be careful. You are not an artist, and there is no management company to take care of everything for you. Finding that she didn't take it seriously, Kurosawa Hikaru also warned him seriously. In his opinion, even if Chizuru's home address has not been exposed, it is very dangerous to be so beautiful and act alone. Moreover, due to the social system, most people's mental state is relatively depressed, the possibility of becoming abnormal is very high. At least, that's what he thought. Even if it is prejudice, it is always a good thing for girls to pay more attention to safety. Good. Ninomiya Chizuru saw that he was serious, and after thinking about it, he agreed. If she is followed, in addition to her own safety issues, it may also affect their date and 0 hours true identity. Where are we going now? Putting this matter aside, Ninomiya Chizuru looked at the time, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and asked. It's still early and the vacation isn't over yet. Guess it? Faced with such a problem, Kurosawa Hikaru decisively used tactics. In fact, he knows Chizuru's interests and preferences very well, because the system's dating funds will reveal the other person's preferences. But there was less than half a day left, and the date mission this time had to be in a limited location, a hot spring hotel. There was no way to complete the mission, so it was difficult to come up with a good idea. In this case, it's better to see where she wants to go and go with her. This trick is really useful, but only for people who have a crush on you or are interested in you. Go back to the hotel. Ninomiya Chizuru saw him cheating, and after thinking about it, he thought of a place to go. Kurosawa Hikaru, who was driving seriously, couldn't help but look sideways. Guessed wrong. Ninomiya Chizuru's beautiful eyes reflected his face. Although she was wearing a mask, she could still vaguely see the details through the reaction of her eyebrows. What are you doing back at the hotel? Kurosawa Hikaru didn't understand and couldn't help but ask. Under normal circumstances, guess what, if the other party is willing to answer, usually the first answer is the answer that the other party is most interested in subconsciously. Of course, this is not an absolute thing. After all, this trick is not a systematic skill, it is just a love trick, and there are various possibilities. Could she be thinking that she bought you a car and a house according to your expectations, so now she can go back to the hotel with me and have a kiss? Come on, he just spent the night at Miki's house last night and had to leave early in the morning. This made him feel very guilty. It would be too shameful to spend the night with Chizuru in a hotel tonight and leave early tomorrow morning. Although kissing does not mean spending the night, Kins is so beautiful, her every smile is charming, and her movements are full of the charm of a mature woman. He is not sure about his own strength. Get your things and check out. My clothes and the cosmetics you bought are all in the hotel. Regarding this question, Ninomiya Chizuru explained. If you didn't tell me, I would have forgotten, then go back to the hotel to get your things first. Seeing that she didn't lift her hair, and obviously not feeling guilty at all, Kurosawa Hikaru paused for a few seconds and nodded. This matter really needs to be dealt with. When they left the hotel in the morning, they walked out, but this time they had a car and could carry more things. Kurosawa, can I guess again? After deciding the matter, Ninomiya Chizuru couldn't help but ask. She had been smart since she was a child and was good at using her brain, but she guessed wrong, and her competitive spirit suddenly came back. Sure. She was patient and willing to continue guessing, so Kurosawa naturally followed her lead. Well. With his permission, Ninomiya Chizuru did not answer quickly this time, but fell into deep thought. Kurosawa drove the car and stopped at a traffic light intersection to wait. He took his phone and turned on the navigation. Although he has a strong memory, the hotel is in Chiyoda Ward, a strange place he rarely goes to. Sister Kinhee, you can just guess, there's no need to think too much. After setting the destination and listening to the navigation instructions on the phone, Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that she hadn't made a sound yet, so he comforted her. There is no answer to his question at all, as long as Sister Kinhee cooperates and makes a few guesses, as long as the answer is not a weird one. Yes, the answer to this question is flexible. Don't worry, give me a little more time and I'll guess it right. Ninomiya Chizuru shook her head, not wanting to make random guesses. Guesses this trick useless to her. Seeing that she was serious, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her in surprise. Thinking about it carefully, misunderstandings aside, Sister Kinhee's first guess just now, that returning to the hotel was the most likely option from a rational point of view. Their stuff was left at the hotel and there was no checkout, it was an absolute to-do list. She wasn't thinking about where she wanted to go at all, but was analyzing what choices he would make. Going to buy a wig. After a long time, Ninomiya Chizuru raised her head with sharp eyes. Although the current destination is a hotel, that is not the correct answer, it is just an unfinished to-do list. Kurosawa waited for 10 minutes for the second answer. He didn't care what she said and pretended to be surprised. Did you guess it right? Seeing his expression, Ninomiya Chizuru thought about the different flavors, and her eyes lit up. You guessed it right, Sister Kinhee, you are too smart, you can guess this. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded, and then sighed. When it came to buying a wig, the answer really exceeded his expectations. From this point of view, guess what is indeed of no use to her. When she encounters this situation, she relies entirely on analysis instead of saying what makes her happy when she thinks about it. It's okay, it's just a simple guess, because today's disguise is very successful, I will definitely buy a few more wigs and contact lenses. Ninomiya Chizuru rolled her hair with her hands and smiled happily. Although today was a date, she felt that Kurosawa was very concerned about the fact that when they met this morning, she wore thick clothes just to prevent others from recognizing her. Perhaps her makeup skills are far inferior to Kurosawa's, but wearing a wig and contact lenses is still very easy for her. If she changes to a wig and a pair of contact lenses, wears a mask and drives out, the likelihood of her being recognized is very low. She doesn't object to disguise at all, rather she likes it. Because she wore a wig and contact lenses, she didn't have to worry about anyone finding out about her previous relationship with Kurosawa, and she didn't have to worry about being implicated in Kurosawa's true identity being discovered. This was good, as it completely solved her problem of not being able to disguise herself and her worries about being recognized. She wouldn't have to worry about dating Kurosawa in the future. I picked them randomly before, but this time you picked them. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded and immediately had an idea. Although it is weird for a couple to go shopping for wigs together on a date, in the final analysis, it is a good choice for a couple to act together, as long as the process is happy, even if it is a walk in the park. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 456. There are many shops where you can buy wigs because there is a huge demand for them. Neon cosplay is very famous and has a huge influence. Act culture is also popular. With the development of the times, it is growing day by day. Under such circumstances, more and more boys are beginning to break through the lower limits and ideological constraints and challenge various women's clothing. Although the quality and price of wigs bought for cosplay are relatively low, and they are basically not meant to be used all the time, but only used twice, for the wig market, they are still a considerable income. However, the mainstream market for wigs is still aimed at women and the entertainment industry. It is no exaggeration to say that girls all over the world love beauty. Among them, neon girls' love for beauty is definitely among the best in the world, otherwise they would not have started wearing makeup since elementary school. Although there are not many handsome guys in neon, there are a lot of beauties in neon. There are even many underground idols with a monthly income of over 100,000 yuan and little fame. Their looks can surpass many internet celebrities he saw in his previous life. Since he had run away first, Kurosawa simply took Ninomiya Chizuru directly to the shop in the morning. This is too much. Arriving at the third floor where wigs are sold, Ninomiya Chizuru was shocked at first glance, even though she had always had a mature and calm personality. Looking around, the dazzling array of wigs is simply dizzying. At first glance, it looks like a hair maze. Countless mannequins, wearing various wigs, are everywhere on the counters and shelves. This is the largest store in Shibuya. Of course there are a lot of them. Let's go shopping and buy colored contact lenses on the second floor later. This was the second time Kurosawa Hikaru saw this scene. He had already adapted to it. When he saw her reaction, he was immediately amused. I always feel a bit scary here. Ninomiya Chizuru, who was still holding his arm, hugged his arm, subconsciously moved her steps and hid behind him. Perhaps she had seen more terrifying scenes at Fuji-Q Highland, and she also experienced a thrilling trip to a haunted house while being carried away by Kurosawa. But this wig maze brings a completely different sense of horror, just like the uncanny valley effect. The more anthropomorphic it is, the scarier it is. It's okay, I'm here. Her arm was deep in the softness, and Kurosawa Hikaru felt a sense of secret pleasure. He reached out and patted the back of her hand gently, comforting her. Although he has a lot of dating experience, such an erotic and happy experience is rare. After saying that, he took Ninomiya Chizuru and walked forward. "What kind of hairstyle do you want?" Kurosawa Hikaru asked, as this was not his first time here and he was considered a regular customer. Because in the morning, he was not sure about Sister Kinhee's preference, so he simply bought a similar hairstyle, that is, thick long hair. But the opportunity was rare. She wanted to try short hair, and it was not surprising to have shoulder-length hair. "Let's take a look first." Ninomiya Chizuru looked around and couldn't make up his mind for a moment. Although it is a wig and you can change it after buying it, which is completely different from the experience of going to a barber shop, there are so many products in this store that it is difficult to choose. "Then let's take our time and see." Kurosawa Hikaru was not anxious at all. After all, she was holding his arms. He felt so comfortable. He enjoyed this situation very much. Their steps are very slow. Basically, Ninomiya Chizuru will look at every wig carefully, and they have a very serious personality. In fact, in his opinion, with Sister Kinhee's appearance, she can manage most hairstyles. This situation is similar to the concept of a clothes rack. With stunning looks, tall figure, outstanding temperament, and smooth skin, Kinhee looks good in any clothes, including wigs. After walking like this for a while, Ninomiya Chizuru gradually adapted to the environment here. Unlike a haunted house, there will be staff pretending to be ghosts, who will pop out from a corner to scare you. These are motionless mannequins. "Kurosawa, what's your favorite color of hair?" After pondering for a long time, Ninomiya Chizuru raised her head and asked. "What's your favorite?" "Of course it's blue." Hearing this question, Kurosawa Hikaru subconsciously wanted to answer, but his desire to survive made him swallow the word white hair hard and change his words. What a risk, he almost answered wrongly. "Maybe your favorite hair color means nothing. If your boyfriend reveals his preference in this aspect, your girlfriend may even go to dye her hair specifically. But the problem is that he has many girlfriends, and their hair is colorful. Long straight black hair, blonde hair, blue hair, and silver gray hair. These 4 hair colors can accurately match 4 people. Although Bai Mao couldn't compete with others, Sister Kinhee had seen him and Mickey Bai Ma having afternoon tea together in the cafe. That's great. Ninomiya Chizuru looked at him sideways. She was attentive and smart. Naturally, she noticed his strange pause, but she didn't pursue it. Instead, she smiled with a curved eyebrow. The concept of intelligence is actually difficult to embody, but there are many cases of intelligence that exist everywhere in life. For example, it is also smart to turn a blind eye, listen to lies as truth, and not seek the truth, but only seek what you want. What about you? What's your favorite color of hair? Kurosawa Hikaru wasn't sure if she noticed the clue, but seeing that she didn't pursue it, he quickly changed the subject. This question, rounded up, is no less than a proposition. Black. Ninomiya Chizuru raised her eyes and looked at his hair without hesitation. Unlike Kurosawa, who hesitates, she is very sure of her preferences. Iwajiwo, Kurosawa has black hair, and she likes black. If Kurosawa dyed his hair any color, she would still like it? You said it while looking at me. Kurosawa Hikaru noticed her gaze. Yeah, I just like your hair color. Ninomiya Chizuru nodded. You actually admitted it, And even said you like it? You didn't lift your hair, is that because of that? Kurosawa Hikaru was shocked. It always felt strange. He couldn't help but glance at the arms held in her arms. For him, this posture was purely for enjoyment, but for Sister Kinhee, it was actually quite embarrassing. Perhaps it was because she tolerated that shyness that her verbal shyness was suppressed. This situation is similar to the bottom line being lowered, because there are things that are more shy. In comparison, things that are slightly shy are not worth caring about. He really guessed right, Ninomiya Chizuru's condition was indeed like this. I kissed you and hugged you. Tell me how you like me. She felt that in the current relationship between her and Kurosawa, it didn't matter if she said they liked her, what's more, what she said she liked was hair color. During the conversation, Ninomiya Chizuru finally started to choose a wig. The wig maze is an unprecedented shopping experience for her. It feels very novel and different from any store she has been to since she was a child. In this regard, Kurosawa Hikaru also patiently accompanied her in the selection process and expressed his opinions for reference. With makeup skills, he is very experienced in choosing clothes and hair color. You are so familiar with wigs. Have you ever brought others to buy them before? However, Ninomiya Chizuru noticed his proficiency, but was not very happy, and suddenly felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. No, you are the only one who wears a disguise when going out like a big star. Don't you need itchy nose? She's not a model. She's not famous yet. She doesn't even need to wear a hat when she goes out. She'd better pay more attention. If someone sees her dating you and knows that she has a boyfriend, it will have a bad impact on her career as an artist. Oh. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her in surprise that Chizuru would actually care about Yuki-chan. Is this what Sister Yu has in mind? He's really old. He was pushed down once and even bullied to tears. I'm thinking about the company, not about her. If the artist is not single, his value will be greatly reduced. Faced with his strange look, Ninomiya Chizuru was so smart that she quickly guessed his thoughts. She paused for a few seconds, fiddled with her hair, and said calmly, "Yes, yes." Seeing that she was acting arrogant again, Kurosawa smiled and did not try to expose her. I'm also a partner of the firm. It's normal to give opinions on the future of an artist. And if people know that you are dating her, it will also have an impact on you. Although it was through a mask, Ninomiya Chizuru seemed to be able to see his smile, and she immediately became anxious. Indeed. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't want to make her angry, so he followed her wishes. Chizuru-san has such a broad mind and has begun to care about Yuki-chan. Does this mean that she doesn't mind at all that I'm on multiple boats? Speaking of which, everyone still doesn't know that Baiyu and I are together. Thinking of this, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly thought of a question. Everyone still doesn't know about Baiyu and I being together, and we don't even know about the future. But Ms. Runa may know that the super VIP ticket she got me, if I pay attention, I can notice where Baiyu is sitting. Regarding this matter, I have to confess later, I hope it won't cause a big problem. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 457. It was a rare visit, and since she had a rich wallet, Ninomiya Chizuru simply bought one of various colors. It was a rare opportunity, and she chose a variety of hairstyles, including short hair, but no matter how she chose, her choices were very tasteful. Would you like to try twin tails? When choosing a wig, Kurosawa saw a special hairstyle. After hesitating for a long time, he mustered up the courage to propose it. The twin ponytails for girls are comparable to Valentino high-heeled shoes, both of which have the effect of accelerating attack speed. He and Xiaoyuki have already tried it, and the attack speed gain is very strong. Don't want. However, his proposal was ruthlessly rejected by Ninomiya Chizuru. Even if it's a wig, she can't accept twin tails. As for colored contact lenses, she also chose a variety of them. In addition, they also visited a beauty store. Today, there are many kinds of masks, and there are even cute shapes like cat masks. Even the masks have become a single item for girls to wear. After their wanton spending, they return to the car. The charges for each parking lot in Neon are outrageous. They are not charged based on 1 hour, but based on 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Even so, Kurosawa Hikaru and Ninomiya Chizuru chose to move around in the car in order to be safer on their next date. Is this what it's supposed to be like? In the back seat, Ninomiya Chizuru combed her hair and started playing with it. Yes, you have to take your time so that the wig and hairnet can be worn more stably. Kurosawa held a mirror in front of her and taught her how to disguise herself bit by bit. Perhaps after meeting him, with his makeup skills, it was easy for Chizuru Ninomiya to disguise herself to the point where others could not recognize her. But he couldn't stay with Kinzuru 24 hours a day. The moment he decided to buy more wigs and contact lenses, this result was already doomed. Ninomiya Chizuru must learn to use wigs and contact lenses to disguise herself, which will be beneficial to them every time they meet. Outside the apartment where Ninomiya Chizuru lives, Yamazaki Yahito is still squatting in the parking lot. Because he didn't have a car in the morning and couldn't keep up with the taxi, he finally failed to catch it. He decisively asked a friend to borrow a car and paid half of the deposit in his bank card, which was 50%. 10,000 yen, the deadline is 5 days. After settling the matter, he drove over, got some sleep in the car, and set the alarm clock for 7 p.m. According to his speculation, Adelina definitely went on a date with 0 Hour today, at an unknown location. However, a monk who can escape cannot escape from the temple. Right now, what he has to do is wait for Adelina to come home, lock the target again, and wait patiently for the next opportunity to come. Opportunities are always reserved for those who are prepared. With the lessons learned from past mistakes, he will definitely not miss them this time. I will definitely find 0 Hour's true identity. Yamazaki Yahito was sitting in the car, holding a bottle of Odin bought from the vending machine in his hand. He looked at the entrance and exit of the apartment. From time to time he would glance at the empty road. Whenever a car passed by, he would glance at it and observe it. If it was a taxi, he would choose to keep a close eye on it. Different from the previous walking tracking, this time he paid a huge price, and he vowed that he must find 0 Hour. It is foreseeable that when he finds out Ling Shi's true identity, he will definitely become famous all over the internet overnight. 8:30, is it still early? Yamazaki Yahito took a look at the phone and said to himself. According to his speculation, Adelina's dates with 0 Hour will definitely not be very frequent. Because of this, the quality will definitely be higher. To explain it in other words, it is a rare date, and you will definitely not come back until you have thoroughly enjoyed yourself. At this moment, he saw a car driving over. It was a Mercedes-Benz C-Class. It looked very good looking and was worth a lot of money. As a developed country in Neon, although not everyone buys a car, almost every household has a car. Mercedes-Benz, Neon's most popular imported brand name car, is quite eye-catching. Mercedes-Benz C-Class. Although it looks good, the price is too cheap. When I make money, I will buy a more expensive one. Most men know about cars. Yamazaki Yahito took a few glances and couldn't help but feel hot in his heart. He stared closely at the car, drove into the underground parking lot on the side of the apartment, and then looked away. This apartment is very high-end and the rent is very high because it is located in a very good location in Bunkyo district. Bunkyo Ward is one of the 23 wards in Tokyo. It is a Neon cultural and educational center. Led by the University of Tokyo, 15 universities are gathered here. In addition, many large hospitals are established here. It is also known as the medical capital of Tokyo. Tokyo Dome is located there. Maybe it's not as expensive as Ginza, but the housing prices and land prices are still high. Building a luxury villa in a place like this will have all kinds of facilities. An apartment with a flat parking lot and an underground parking lot, and located in a place like Bunkyo district, can be called a luxury apartment. People who can live here are usually rich or expensive. The more he saw the lives of rich people, the hotter his mood became. His goal is very clear, that is to track Miss Adelina, find out Ling Shi's true identity, become popular on the entire internet overnight, and make a lot of money. Ninomiya Chizuru drove into the parking lot, clumsily and slowly, and it took her 4 minutes to park the car in her assigned parking space. After she got her driver's license, she hadn't driven for nearly 10 years, and her hands were already numb. Fortunately, the car was expensive and equipped with a very useful reversing imaging system, otherwise it might not be possible to park in. After finishing this, she got out of the car, swiped the card in the elevator, and went directly to her floor. Along the way, several residents saw her and looked at her sideways, wondering who this beautiful woman was and when she moved in. After returning home and closing the door, Ninomiya Chizuru breathed a sigh of relief. Then, she took off her high heels at the entrance, put on slippers and walked into the house. Along the way, she also began to remove her disguise, such as the brown wig, the beautiful long blue hair was free, and the mask, revealing her sexy and mature lips and nose. The wig is of very good quality. When wearing it with the air conditioner, it won't be hot or uncomfortable at all. It is much more comfortable than wearing a coat in the wrong season. I'm home. After removing all kinds of disguises, Ninomiya Chizuru felt relieved and took out her mobile phone to send a message to Kurosawa Hikaru. Received. When the agency finds someone to clean the villa tomorrow, you can find a moving company to help you move there. When moving, be careful and don't let anyone know. If the address is exposed, it will be quite troublesome. Kurosawa Hikaru, who had already taken the train and returned to the door of the apartment, saw that Chizuru finally sent a message and reminded her again. It's better to be safe than sorry. Although Chizuru, like Sayuki, has not encountered any danger for many years and is not vigilant enough in this regard, he knows very well how charming they are. Got it? Ninomiya Chizuru replied quickly. Seeing this reply, Kurosawa Hikaru felt much more at ease. Walking into the apartment and taking the elevator, Kurosawa Hikaru also opened the task panel in his spare time. Dating mission, a hot spring trip with Ninomiya Chizuru. Mission objectives. Meet at a hot spring, wash her feet, kiss 10 times, let her hold you to sleep. Mission deadline, 7 days. Mission funds, entry-level piano, entry-level finance investment theory, experience card. Mission rewards, entry-level piano, entry-level finance investment theory, permanent. According to the time, it has to be before Tuesday. The time is quite tight. I wonder if she has a holiday. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at this mission and couldn't help thinking. Today is Saturday, and there are less than 3 days left before the end of the mission. Tomorrow is Sunday. He has to go to the Chasing Wind dojo early in the morning and elope with Mirai to the beach. He will probably move on Monday, which means he must go to Hakone on Tuesday. While thinking, his eyes are on the progress of the mission. Kiss 10 times, mission progress 5/10. Although they stayed in the back seat of the car in the parking lot for a long time after buying the things, they have been learning to disguise. But in order to show it, he still took the initiative to kiss Chizuru, and kissed her twice at dinner in the evening. Although this task is halfway done, should I kiss her 10 times after I get to the hot spring hotel? Kurosawa Hikaru was thinking about this, and the elevator had already reached the corresponding floor. The task goal is the embodiment of the woman's expectations. Basically, as long as the task goal is completed, it is easy to increase the favorability. However, he did not hesitate too much. Although the time for this task seems to be as fast as possible, and there is not much time left, it seems that time is very tight, but he thinks that time is quite ample. As long as they meet at the hot spring, other tasks are easy to handle. After all, his relationship with Chizuru is already very deep. Whether it is washing her feet, kissing her, or hugging her to sleep, as long as the atmosphere is right, everything will come naturally. Compared to this, the date task he should consider most right now is the date tomorrow and in the future. Time passed bit by bit, and Yamazaki Yangren, who was in the flat parking lot outside the apartment, was also waiting patiently. It's 10 o'clock, she should be going home soon. It's 11 o'clock, why hasn't she come back yet? Isn't she going to come back tonight? Yamazaki Yahito's patience was exhausted in the process of constant waiting, because the current situation was beyond his expectations. According to his investigation, Miss Adeline never drove a car, whether she was studying at the University of Tokyo or working at the University of Tokyo, she never drove a car, basically took the tram or bus. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't imagine that Adeline walked out in the morning and took a taxi, sneaked out for a date, and drove home in the evening. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 458. At 7:47 in the morning, Kurosawa Hikaru arrived at the Chasing Wind Dojo. However, even though he moved quickly, Shifunjayuan Mirai and Akai Sayaka still arrived one step ahead of him. Shifunjayuan Mirai, wearing a Kyoto uniform, holding a Japanese bow, and with her black hair completely tied up, has a cold and aloof temperament, giving people a serious and sharp temperament. Standing on the shooting point, drawing the bow and shooting arrows, her profile is beautiful, and she doesn't need the embellishment of hair at all. Ms. Sayaka, good morning. Mr. Kurosawa, good morning. Akai Sayaka, who was wearing a maid outfit as usual, was not surprised to see him come early in the morning. She just heard the greeting and responded respectfully. The longer she knew him, the more deeply she appreciated Kurosawa Hikaru's charm and excellence. Why did you change into a Kyoto uniform? After greeting her with a smile, Kurosawa Hikaru walked to Shifunjayuan Mirai on the shooting point and asked in a low voice. He was so familiar with Mirai that he didn't even need to say hello. Can't you change? Shifunjayuan Mirai shot an arrow to warm up, and her beautiful eyes turned to look at him. We're going to the beach later, it's not convenient for you to wear this outfit. Kurosawa Mitsuru nodded and said affirmatively. Don't you wear a swimsuit when you go to the beach? What does it have to do with me wearing a Kyoto uniform? Shifunjayuan Mirai didn't understand what she said. Today is a good day. She woke up at 6 o'clock and came to the dojo earlier than usual to wait. She was so excited that she simply changed into a Kyoto uniform and shot for a while to express her emotions. And when she came to the dojo, she always felt weird if she didn't change into a Kyoto uniform. Are you going to run around in a swimsuit all the time? There will always be a time to put on clothes again. Although what she said made sense, Kurosawa Mitsuru was still helpless. Even though he didn't know what the future swimsuit looked like, a swimsuit was a swimsuit. If you leave the beach and see it in other places, it would not be appropriate. Then when we leave later, go to the locker room and take my clothes. Shifunjayuan Mirai thought about it and agreed with him. Aren't you going to change first? Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned when he heard it. When we get to the beach, we have to take off our clothes and change into swimsuits anyway. It's too troublesome to change back and forth. Wait until we are done playing at the beach and then wear regular clothes when we need them. That's right. Listening to her words, Kurosawa Hikaru wanted to refute, but he couldn't help but agree. There was a bitter feeling when hearing the words of taking off clothes from a girl's mouth. And going to the women's locker room to get clothes was very attractive to him. Because he had never entered a women's locker room in his 2 lives, it was a rare opportunity to take risks. Have you told Sayaka? It's to the beach. No. Aren't you going to tell her? The maids of the Akai family always stay by their master's side even if there is an earthquake. It's impossible to get rid of her. I'll tell her now. Kurosawa Hikaru thought about it and nodded. Originally, he did want to hide it from the maid. After all, if she knew about it, she might be implicated. But according to Mirai, it was impossible to completely hide it, and he still needed help from others and wanted to spend an hour alone with Mirai. Ms. Sayaka. Changing his mind, Kurosawa Hikaru turned around and walked towards the maid. What can I do for you? Akai Sayaka, who was standing guard, saw his smiling face and had a bad feeling, but still responded. I want to discuss something with you. Walking to her side, Kurosawa Hikaru's tone and expression were very friendly. Please go ahead. Seeing his smiling face, Akai Sayaka felt almost instantly that he was talking to her, and there was definitely no good thing. The safety of the eldest lady of the Shifunjayuan family seems to be protected by only a personal maid, but in fact there are many bodyguards in secret. You know, the value of the eldest lady of the Shifunjayuan family is so noble. If she is kidnapped, paying money is a small matter, the key is the problem of face. If someone really kidnapped them, regardless of the safety issue or the ransom issue, if this matter was spread out and known to others, the Shifunjayuan family would be laughed at. For this reason, Shifunjayuan Future has a team of bodyguards operating in secret. Wherever they go, they will immediately conduct safety inspections of the destination, various commanding heights, and hidden places. At 8:15 in the morning, as the gate of the Zufeng dojo was opened, a luxury car was driven out. This car was once filed by the bodyguard team and is one of the 11 cars of Shifunjayuan Future. Ms. Sayaka, you are not following the itinerary, but are taking a car away from the Zufeng dojo. Where are you going? As it appeared, a bodyguard holding a tablet saw that the DPS positioning red dot on the road was moving continuously, and it was obvious that he was going to other places. He was stunned for a moment, and took action immediately and turned on the intercom to contact. As soon as this was said, the bodyguard team in the black cars parked on all sides of the Zufeng dojo heard the movement. Ms. Sayaka, the vehicle you are riding in is moving fast. The operation is not in accordance with the itinerary. Please reply as soon as possible. Team 4, please pay attention. The young lady's car, a pure white Rolls-Royce, is moving. The license plate is Tokyo XXX, it is moving towards you. The young lady is likely in the car. Intercept it. Team 4 received. Attention other teams, lock GPS and follow. Team 2 received. Team 3 received. Team 5 received. Ms. Sayaka, please stop the car immediately and reply, explain the situation, otherwise, I will report to the Akai family and carry out forced interception. At the same time, other bodyguard teams took action one after another. Each car is equipped with 2 bodyguards, one responsible for driving and the other responsible for contact at any time. Sayaka received, Mr. Kurosawa wants to take the young lady to the beach for a day. Mr. Kurosawa has contacted the mistress and the trip has been approved. There is no need to intercept. Just then, a mature and calm female voice sounded, breaking the intercom channel full of male voices. Are you sure that this trip has been approved by the mistress? The captain of bodyguard team 1 finally heard her reply and questioned. They naturally knew who Mr. Kurosawa was. Although they didn't know much, his identity was very noble. I'm very sure, all follow, the destination is Kamakura Hama Beach. Sayaka Akai's tone was very affirmative. Got it? Hearing this reply, the captain of the bodyguard team 1 suddenly relaxed. In fact, in order to deal with various crisis situations, they have conducted training and developed some code words. If Miss Sayaka's reply is just "I'm sure," it is a subtle explanation that they are in danger of being kidnapped and helpless. But if it is very sure, then everything is normal. The GPS locator is placed on the maid. After all, there is no reason to carry the GPS locator on the owner, even for safety considerations. The back seat of the Rolls-Royce is very spacious, with leather seats, extreme luxury, and a starry sky ceiling, which can be called a mansion in the car. The conversation between the bodyguard and the personal maid was heard by Kurosawa Mitsuru in the back seat. "This posture, it's not easy to get you out." Hearing such a big commotion, Kurosawa Mitsuru couldn't help but sigh. Even if he had known that the future bodyguard team would not only be Akai Sayaka alone, but a total of 11 people, under the reminder of his elder brother Shinichi. During the public action, the number of people will increase, up to 20 people at most, but seeing is believing. If it was easy, I would have run away long ago. Shifunjayuan Mirai smiled slightly, not surprised by this. "Mr. Kurosawa, are you sure that the mistress will not punish me for saying this?" Although they were very relaxed, Akai Sayaka, who was driving, could not calm down for a long time. "Don't worry, I called her maid 3 times and she didn't answer. Just take it as her acquiescence. If there is a problem, let her come to me. If it really doesn't work, you can say I lied to you." Kurosawa Hikaru saw that she was worried, and also promised. "Yes." Akai Sayaka nodded. Her heartbeat was very fast, because of the unprecedented exciting situation. At this point, because she was on Mr. Kurosawa's pirate ship, she could only gamble, betting on the value of the family head's business card, and the mistress would not blame this private action. As a maid of the Akai family, she knew how valuable the family head's business card was, and she knew very well how high Mr. Kurosawa's status was. As for being alone for an hour, well, if there are too many lice, you are not afraid of them biting you. What a pity, I wanted to show off my driving skills. After deciding on this, Kurosawa Hikaru sat in the back seat and stretched his body lazily, feeling regretful. Originally, he wanted to pretend to knock out Akai Sayaka and elope with Shifunjayuan Mirai, leaving everyone behind and setting off with just the 2 of them. But plans are not as good as changes. With the bodyguard team guarding every entrance and exit, it is impossible to slip away quietly. After discussing with Akai Sayaka, it became like this. Hearing this, Akai Sayaka did not respond. In fact, she really wanted to say that both her driving skills and the driver of the bodyguard car were professionally trained. This training is not the kind of training in a driving school, but a more rigorous training. Such driving skills are not inferior to those of professional racing drivers. Showing off driving skills in front of them is simply a joke. "Let's go to the beach." Shifunjayuan Mirai is still wearing a Kyoto uniform, but she is very excited. When she and Hikaru were watching the travel vlog on YouTube at the dojo, she was looking forward to going to the beach with Kurosawa Hikaru. "Let's have fun." Kurosawa Hikaru was in a good mood when he saw the uncontrollable excitement and anticipation on her face. From Tokyo to Kamakura, if you take the Shinkansen, the speed is very fast. However, it is not very far to drive there, at most an hour's drive. Sitting leisurely in the car, Kurosawa Hikaru also opened the dating task. Future summertime with Shifunjayuan. Task objectives: meet at the beach, spend an hour alone, run on the beach with her on your back at sunset, kiss at the most brilliant moment of fireworks. Task deadline: 30 days. Task funds: entry-level driving, entry-level swimming, entry-level massage, experience card. Task rewards: entry-level driving, entry-level swimming, entry-level massage, permanent. If I complete this task, will I have 3 perfect skills? Seeing the completion date and the dating task that was just around the corner, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but secretly said. Perfect swimming, this skill is probably the easiest to obtain, because it is a basic reward that will be triggered when dating at the beach, and it strictly avoids danger. Perfect massage, he doesn't have many opportunities to bring out the effect of this skill. After all, he didn't want to be a professional masseur, so it was difficult to fully bring out the effect and power of this skill. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 459. Uegahama Beach in Kamakura City is a favorite among locals and Tokyoites. Because Tokyoites want to visit this beach, it can be an easy day trip. Along the Uegahama coastline, there are many beachfront huts, restaurants, pubs, and clubs. During the off-season, this beach would be quieter, but now it's early September, it's summer vacation, and it's sunny summer. Neon people are very enthusiastic about events such as festivals and temple fairs, and they also pursue different seasons. There are cherry blossom viewing in spring, seaside in summer, red leaf hunting in autumn, and various festivals and ceremonies in winter. What's more, there is a saying that summer is incomplete without playing in the water. Uegahama, there are so many people. After more than an hour's drive, we finally arrived at the coastline. In the back seat of the Rolls-Royce, Saifunjai Yuanmurai looked through the car window and saw the bustling crowds on the beach, his eyes glowing. Neon is a private landowner. She used to go to private beaches. The beach was extremely quiet and she had never seen so many people. It's more lively than expected. Kurosawa Hikaru also noticed the situation at the beach and touched his chin. According to the situation, if he wants to be alone with the future, it may be difficult to achieve it at the beach. Not long after, they arrived at the beach house next to the beach. Each beachfront hut is equipped with changing rooms and lockers to attract guests. Walking out of the locker room, Kurosawa was wearing only a pair of boxer shorts. His arms were bent to hold the clothes, and his whole body was relaxed. Compared to girls, boys tend to change clothes faster. Miss Sayaka, aren't you hot? After walking out, he glanced to the side and asked curiously. Won't. Even when she came to the beach, Sayaka Akai was still wearing a thick maid uniform, shaking her head slightly and looking calm. What she wore was not a sexy maid outfit with a mini skirt to match a man's XP, but a very traditional and solemn maid outfit. Yeah. Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but look at her a few more times. He felt hot just looking at her and was deeply suspicious. When he was in the luxury apartment, he didn't feel that strong because there was air conditioning and the temperature was always kept in a comfortable range. When I was in the Zufeng dojo, because the dojo was very spacious and it was a wooden dojo, I guess it was designed with ventilation in mind, so it was very cool. But at the beach, even if the location of the locker room is not directly exposed to the sun, but the heat wave hits, it is too outrageous to say that it will not be hot. You know, even if his physique has been strengthened in various ways, it will still be hot when it should be. To put it bluntly, even machines can overheat and must be cooled down. This is a rare opportunity, why don't you change into your swimsuit and play for a while? After thinking about it, Kurosawa Hikaru was still worried that she would suffer from heat stroke, so he suggested. My duty is to take care of the eldest lady, not to play. Sayaka Akai was unmoved. Don't you think? Kurosawa Hikaru still refused to give up. He definitely didn't want to see what Sayaka Akai's figure looked like in that maid uniform. He had long forgotten that Sayaka's figure in the maid uniform that Mirai had mentioned was super sexy, and she even used a bra wrap. Something to cover up your figure. He simply didn't want her to suffer from heat stroke, and he also wanted her to have a good time. Although she is a humanoid camera, she still has human rights. There is no need to invite her. She will only take off those clothes when she takes a bath and sleeps. She will not take them off at other times. At this moment, the door she was waiting for was opened, and Saifunjai Yuanmurai walked out. As she pushed the door open and walked out, Kurosawa Hikaru subconsciously looked around and was really shocked. The beauties he has an impression of all have their own characteristics. For example, Ichino's Yuki has breasts, legs, and a killer waist. For example, Chizuru Ninomiya has an amazing butt and long legs. For example, Miki Hakuha has a childlike face and a frail body. Although he looks very small, he has long hands and legs, and his skin is super white. For example, Igarashi Runa has a bulging front and a large, oppressive weapon. In short, regardless of appearance, there are only a few characteristics of beautiful women, such as long legs, big breasts, perky buttocks, thin waists, and fair skin. Only Saifunjayuan Mirai has all the advantages. He has a curvy figure. Although he can't be called hot, he has everything. She was wearing a black one-piece swimsuit that covered her belly, with cutouts on the side waist, revealing her slim waist. The style was not a bikini, but it still exposed more than usual clothes. Against the black background, her cold white skin was as white as cream, so white that it glowed. The beautiful legs under the skirt are like two snow-white jade pillars, straight and slender, rounded where they should be, and slender where they should be, like a work of art. A pair of beautiful feet, wearing a pair of sandals, small and exquisite feet, with well-proportioned toes, looking extremely beautiful. She may be wearing a swimsuit rather than any luxurious clothes, but her temperament is still noble and cold. How about it? When Saifunjayuan saw his straight gaze in the future, he felt a little proud. If it weren't for Kurosawa being jealous and not wanting others to see her good figure, the effect would definitely be better if she wore a bikini. Aren't my eyes enough to show how I feel? Kurosawa Hikaru felt that his feeling of being amazed was more convincing than his words. From his personal experience, for girls, a glowing reaction is more effective than sweet words. This kind of reaction is suitable for every occasion. For example, when we met on a date, we went shopping for clothes together and saw girls changing clothes and coming out of the locker room. I want to hear it from your own mouth. Saifunjayuan did know his answer in the future, but he still asked knowingly. So beautiful. Kurosawa Hikaru was helpless because Neon had too few words to praise people's beauty. Apart from being beautiful, they were just cute and without any nutrition. How does it compare to Ichino's? Saifunjayuan's future eyebrows were as curved as crescent moons, and his expression was even more lively than usual. After successfully escaping from the itinerary and arriving at a place she shouldn't be, she may still be accompanied by bodyguards and maids, but for her, this is already a very rare freedom, which makes her feel beautiful. You are all beautiful. Kurosawa Hikaru stiffened and said without hesitation. You passed the test. When Saifunjayuan Mirai saw that he could say such words without thinking, he was immediately amused and laughed so hard. It's a shame he could say such shitty words. Ms. Sayaka, it's a rare occasion for you to come here, why don't you put on your swimsuit too? Seeing her smiling happily, Kurosawa couldn't figure out whether she was really happy or something else, so he simply changed the subject and looked at the maid aside. Thank you Kurosawa-san for your concern, but wearing a uniform will always remind me that I am a maid. Sayaka Akai, who had already walked into the dressing room and held the eldest lady's clothes in her arms, shook her head and declined politely. According to your statement, if you take off your maid uniform, you are no longer a maid. Take off your maid uniform, I'm a maid too. That's right. Whether you wear a maid outfit or not, you are still a maid, and don't you think you are too conspicuous in this outfit? Everyone nearby is looking at you. They were looking at the eldest lady and Mr. Kurosawa, not me. Sayaka Akai raised her eyes and glanced at him. If the eldest lady attracts the attention of men, then Mr. Kurosawa can be said to be a man of both sexes. Because he has such a good figure, not the exaggerated muscles of a bodybuilder, but a very sound figure, with erect chest muscles, six-pack abs, natural and graceful lines, plus that handsome face. And look at you, and we are going to play at the beach all day. If you walk around in a maid outfit, it will be easily stained by the sand, and it will be troublesome to wash it, and it may worn out. Kurosawa Hikaru took great pains to get her to wear a swimsuit. I don't have a swimsuit. Akai Sayaka paused after hearing this. Her expression was a little strange, but she still shook her head. You can buy swimsuits. Compared with your maid outfit, a swimsuit only costs a few dollars. Seeing her wavering at that moment, Kurosawa Hikaru finally found a breakthrough. Although she longs for freedom, she loves her maid uniform. Even though he didn't know how much this maid outfit cost, he thought it was expensive and the fabric was definitely not simple. Otherwise, even under the shadow of the eaves of the beach house, the beach would be so hot that she would be sweating profusely. And you're running around in a maid outfit. What if you faint from heat stroke? Akai Sayaka was silent. She wanted to say that she was not that prone to heat stroke. After all, she had been trained. What's more, she had followed the eldest lady to the beach in previous years, but those were on yachts with air conditioning. Sayaka, please change into a swimsuit. Everyone is wearing swimsuits. It makes me uncomfortable to see you dressed like this. At this moment, Saifunjai Yuan Mirai added in a timely manner. This sentence can be said to express Kurosawa Hikaru's heart, and it makes me feel hot just looking at it. Yes. Sayaka Akai saw that the eldest lady had spoken, so she could only obey. Let's go buy a swimsuit and some marine supplies. Even though the persuasion was successful, Kurosawa Hikaru also took advantage of the situation. On the way, he asked if he would swim in the future. As a eldest lady, you must be considerate of everything and not make people laugh. I will be very good at swimming in the future. There are swimming classes in school, and swimming is good for exercising my body lines. In addition, she can also surf, but she only knows wake surfing, which is yacht surfing, which is a more luxurious way of playing. Changing rooms, shower rooms, basically all beachfront cabins are equipped. That's right, you can just turn a corner and find a place to buy swimsuits. Although when you buy swimsuits at the beach, the styles are usually not as good looking as those in the mall, but the prices are also cheaper. After renting a locker and putting all the clothes in it, the maid went to buy a swimsuit. You can see Sayaka's figure later. Taking advantage of this gap, Shifunjin Mirai stood on tiptoes and leaned into Kurosawa Hikaru's ear, whispering as usual. A whisper in the ear is like a feather, tingling the heartstrings. I advised her to change into a swimsuit, not just to look at her figure. However, Kurosawa Hikaru's mood could not rise and he denied it. Didn't you really insist on asking her to change into a swimsuit because I told her that Sayaka's figure is so sexy in her maid uniform? Seeing his firm denial, Saifunjai Yuan was very suspicious in the future. She had just seen that Hikaru Kurosawa took great pains to get the maid to change into a swimsuit. Absolutely not, you slandered me. Kurosawa Hikaru glared at her and firmly denied it. He had long forgotten about the sexy figure and the bra. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 460. Not long after, Akai Sayaka bought a one-piece swimsuit and went into the dressing room. Squeak. She moved quickly, the iron door was pushed open, and Akai Sayaka came out holding a set of clothes. Although the clothes covered part of her figure, they could not cover her tall figure and a pair of beautiful legs. She went to the locker and rented another bracelet. Akai Sayaka also stuffed her maid outfit into it. Is there really a bra wrap? Taking advantage of this time, Kurosawa Hikaru's curiosity got the better of her and he kept staring at her clothes. Maybe Akai Sayaka was more careful and completely wrapped the bra wrap with the maid outfit, so there was no trace at all. Mr. Kurosawa, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting for so long. After putting the clothes away, Akai Sayaka turned around and bowed slightly. Maybe ordinary girls would feel shy if they suddenly put on swimsuits because they rarely wear them, but she was expressionless and calm, and the lines on her face were also relaxed. Obviously she was much more relaxed. Even if the fabric and design of the maid outfit are special and breathable, it is still not as good as a swimsuit. Are all girls with short hair this big? As she bowed, Kurosawa Hikari, who was taller, was immediately shocked by the snow-white skin that should not be seen. Dressing makes her look thin, and undressing makes her look fleshy. Miss Sayaka is a perfect interpretation. Although he has never seen Miss Runa in a swimsuit, but he thinks it is about the same level. After his eyes were attracted by force majeure, Kurosawa Hikari just retracted his eyes and saw other parts of her. She has suffered a lot of injuries. Is this why she doesn't like to take off her maid outfit? Kurosawa Hikari glanced sideways and seemed to understand something. Although her figure is indeed very hot, with a height of about 165 centimeters, beautiful legs, a perky butt, and a waist with abdominal muscles and ambition, but what attracted him again was some light scars. Those scars include lacerations, knife scars, and some surgical scars. This is just the tip of the iceberg when many parts of the body are covered by the swim skirt. Super strong fighting skills, able to surpass the heavyweight, defeat men who are taller and stronger than herself, and even have the ability to kill instantly at the first sight, suspected to be able to fight one against many. As a woman, if she wants to do this, she must make more efforts. Let's go. Shifunjayuan Mirai noticed his gaze, but didn't care, just said. As a master, there is no need to be jealous of the servant, because she knows that her charm is definitely not comparable to that of the maid. Not to mention, she has already discovered that Aguan was attracted by the majestic figure at first sight, and the maid's scars at second sight. Don't worry, prepare for the sun before you go. Retracting his gaze, Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head. Apply sunscreen. Shifunjayuan Mirai, who was already eager to go out, reacted immediately after hearing this, and looked at him with bright eyes, as if she had noticed something. For boys, going to the beach with girls has three beautiful expectations. Helping girls apply sunscreen is a physical contact with a legitimate reason. Seeing girls wearing swimsuits is something you don't see in other places on weekdays. In fact, swimsuits are also a kind of uniform one temptation. Swimming together, having some invisible contact in the sea. You are so white, it's a pity to get tanned. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded and looked into her eyes. Although he said this, he knew what he really meant. Looking around, there should be no one whiter than Mirai on the whole beach, and there is no one who can compare with Mirai. To put it in a more vulgar way, many girls may not be as white as Mirai even if they die for a few days. Indeed, Sayaka, did you bring sunscreen? Shifunjayuan Mirai understood his thoughts and did not refuse, but asked. I'll buy it now. Sayaka Akai shook her head and planned to take action. This time, she was in a hurry to go to the beach, so how could she bring sunscreen? You know, today was supposed to be the day for the eldest lady to practice archery at the Chasing Wind Dojo. As for going to the beach in the past, she didn't need to prepare things like sunscreen, and there would naturally be people in the villa to replenish various things. No need to buy it, I brought it. Kurosawa Hikaru stopped her and said immediately. After that, he took out a bottle of sunscreen from his trouser pocket. His boxer shorts were not the kind that fit the body completely, because that was too perverted, but similar to the shorts of a jersey, but the fabric was different and it was easier to dry. As he took out the sunscreen, it was Sima Zhao's heart, and passers-by knew it. This guy. Shifunjayuan Mirai was stunned for a moment, and smiled playfully. Thank you. Akai Sayaka was also stunned for a moment, and then she stretched out her hand to him. Kurosawa Hikaru saw her bare hand and stepped back a little, and a big question mark suddenly appeared on his head. Thank you. Could she want to use his sunscreen to apply it on the young lady? That won't work. There is an option of massage in the mission funds. In other words, the future is actually looking forward to his help in applying sunscreen. Mr. Kurosawa, are you not going to give it to me? Seeing his retreat, Sayaka Akai immediately realized the situation, but she still spoke. If she was not sure just now, at this moment, she was convinced that Mr. Kurosawa brought up the topic of sunscreen before playing in the water just to apply sunscreen to the eldest lady with his own hands. What would happen if I said I wasn't going to? Kurosawa Hikaru really didn't intend to give it to her. He tried. In fact, he encouraged Sayaka to change into a maid outfit just to please her, so that she could enjoy herself and turn a blind eye to what she and the future would do. No, I have no right to interfere with your decision. Sayaka Akai stared at him and paused for a few seconds. She had already tried, unless she made a surprise attack when Mr. Kurosawa was unprepared, she could defeat him. Human beings are human beings, no matter how strong a boxer is, if they are attacked from behind and hit with bricks, they will be killed in one blow. But if Mr. Kurosawa was prepared, she would have no chance of winning even if the distance was less than 1 meter. Although she was very reluctant, the fighting ability she had developed since she was a child was like an 8-year-old child facing a strong and powerful adult, with no power to fight back in front of Kurosawa Hikaru. Come on, put on sunscreen. Seeing that she couldn't do anything to him, Kurosawa Hikaru took the sunscreen, smiled as if he was victorious, and said to Mirai. It was a rare opportunity, and he didn't want to miss the opportunity to help apply sunscreen. Being valued by Mr. Zhenlong, not even Aunt Fubuki can do anything to him, let alone a maid. Si Fenyuan nodded in the future. Immediately afterwards, Kurosawa Hikaru turned around and led her to the dressing room. Although the locker room is only for one person to change clothes, the overall space is quite large, and there is no problem for 2 people. However, just when Mirai took the initiative to run into the locker room, followed by Kurosawa Hikaru and was about to close the door, the iron door was grabbed. Miss Sayaka, what are you doing? Kurosawa Hikaru noticed this and turned around and asked. Mr. Kurosawa, is it an hour? Akai Sayaka held the iron door with one hand to prevent him from closing it, and asked expressionlessly while getting in. No. Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a moment, then shook his head. That was an hour of alone time. How could such precious time be wasted in a small dressing room? In this place, it is impossible to stretch your arms and legs freely. Although in the locker room, wonderful things did not happen, such as going to the beach with Xiaoyuki for the second time. But it's still early now, and the atmosphere and emotions haven't been brewing yet. At least we have to wait until the afternoon to find a good opportunity. Then I must ensure that the eldest lady does not leave my sight. When Akai Sayaka got this answer, she made her position and attitude clear. At most 10 minutes, I can guarantee that I won't cross the line. Kurosawa squinted his eyes and assured. Just by helping the eldest lady apply sunscreen in a confined space, you have crossed the line. However, Sayaka Akai did not waver at all. Let go quickly, I'm going to pinch you. Kurosawa Hikaru, who was pulling the door open, saw that she disagreed and started to push harder. Although Sayaka was very strong, she was nothing compared to him. If the period of applying sunscreen counts as deducting an hour, I will let go. Sayaka Akai is still squeezing in, negotiating terms. An hour of alone time, if some time can be deducted, will be beneficial to her and can avoid what will happen to a greater extent. No. How could Kurosawa Hikaru agree to this request? Although the rewards for this dating mission are not particularly generous, it will definitely be better if you can complete the mission easily. Then I must go in. Finding that he didn't agree, Akai Sayaka increased her strength and squeezed in again. There's no room left. As she got closer and her soft but strong arm touched him, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly became anxious. In the locker room, although Future has a good figure, the two of them are already a bit crowded. If she were to squeeze in, there wouldn't be enough space for 3 people. Since she wants to come in, let her come in. At this moment, Sifenu Marai, who had already entered the innermost part of the locker room, spoke. Hearing this, Kurosawa Hikaru hesitated, but Sayaka Akai seized the opportunity and got in directly. Boom! As she let go and stopped blocking the door, the iron door of the locker room was immediately closed. 3 people got into a dressing room. This scene was naturally seen by others. What a blessing! Seeing this scene, passers-by couldn't help but be envious. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 461. 3 people squeezed into a small dressing room. Although they were 2 girls and 1 boy, both in good shape, the space was limited after all. In such a situation, Kurosawa Hikaru naturally does not suffer. After all, he is sandwiched between 2 beauties, one behind the other. But this situation also made it impossible for him to help apply sunscreen. Miss Sayaka, no one can do anything about this situation. What do you think we should do? Kurosawa Hikaru asked as he raised his hands to avoid touching places he shouldn't touch. I'm just doing my job. Even with her body pressed against his chest, Sayaka Akai's face remained expressionless. There is a difference between master and servant. This is the first lesson of the Akai family. Maybe Kurosawa Hikaru isn't her master yet, but it's very possible. This situation is not good for everyone. Why don't we go out and change places first? Seeing that she was still calm in the face of danger, Kurosawa Hikaru was surprised by her psychological quality and also suggested. Obviously, unless he made a 1-hour appointment, it would be impossible for him to apply sunscreen to Future alone. He wanted to get rid of the current situation as soon as possible because Bang's situation was too exciting. Although he is not a kid standing on the ground, but an experienced man who has climbed 2 floors. But eating the marrow and knowing the taste, having experience does not mean that the concentration will be stronger, or even worse than before. If he lingers for a while longer, he will be like Kira Yoshikage when he saw the beautiful woman's hand, unable to control his desire. No matter where you go, I will follow you. Sayaka Akai didn't want to be entangled with him for too long, but she also wanted to speak clearly. At the same time, Shifunjin Marai, who was pushed to the innermost position by him, looked at Kurosawa Hikaru's beautiful back and stretched out his hand towards his spine. If you want to follow, just follow. Kurosawa Hikaru already understood this and naturally agreed. But midway through his words, his body couldn't help but tense up and he arched back. The space in the locker room was limited, and they were almost in a state of close contact. Sayaka Akai was pushed by his movement and took half a step back. The iron door that was not firmly closed was knocked open. The sudden collision made Sayaka Akai a little overwhelmed, shocked, and ashamed even though she had received professional training and had a strong psychological quality. Future, what are you doing? Facing her suspicious and startled eyes, Kurosawa Hikaru turned around and said in a bad tone. Isn't this causing trouble? You have a nice back. Sifenjayuan Marai, who caressed him along the line of his spine, blinked and said innocently when faced with his question. She didn't know what looked good on a man's back, because she hadn't seen many of them, but in her opinion, Kurosawa's back was full of attraction to her, and she couldn't help but touch it. Go up. Forget it, let's go out first. Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and said helplessly without continuing to blame her. Feel sorry. Immediately, he also apologized to Akai Sayaka. Then, he turned sideways to make room for the future, letting her go out first. Sifenjayuan Mirai saw him sideways and suddenly laughed, but still cooperated and went out first. After dragging in the locker room for a while, Kurosawa waited until he completely calmed down before leaving the locker room. In view of this lesson, he has already discovered that without the consent and acquiescence of Akai Sayaka, it is impossible to be alone with Mirai. Unless he kills Miss Sayaka and knocks her out, but that is obviously impossible. Although wearing sunscreen is a beautiful thing at the beach, you should not rush it. If you break up with the maid, you will lose more than you gain. After all, he had a harmonious relationship with the maid, and even managed to get an hour of alone time. You can apply it on her this time. After walking out of the dressing room, Kurosawa Hikaru raised his eyes and looked around. He found that the movement here had attracted a lot of attention, so he changed his mind and handed her the sunscreen. Anyway, sunscreen cannot be applied once and last for a day. It needs to be applied every 2-3 hours. It wouldn't be too late for him to apply sunscreen on Mirai when they were alone in the afternoon. Miss, please come with me. After receiving the sunscreen, Akai Sayaka naturally wanted it, and then asked for it. Good. Sifenjayuan will not resist in the future. After all, she has been served by maids since she was a child, whether she is applying body lotion or sunscreen. After they all put on sunscreen, they officially set off. Akai Sayaka wears 3 locker bracelets, 2 mobile phones packed in waterproof bags around her neck, a belt around her waist, a fanny pack and a walkie-talkie, and a swimming ring in her hand. Maritime supplies can be said to be fully armed. You may know how to swim, but wearing a swimming ring on the sea and the feeling of gently floating with the waves is also very comfortable. Hikaru Kurosawa, on the other hand, was holding a surfboard. Although Uegahama Beach is not a holy land for surfing, it can still be played. As for Sifenjayuan Mirai, she didn't bring anything with her. After all, she had a maid and she never needed to take things by herself. Although the appearance of this trio did not become the focus of the whole beach, it was still eye-catching. Because Hikaru Kurosawa's figure is so good, maybe it's not the outrageous muscles of a bodybuilder, but the key is that he's handsome enough. In addition, Sifenjayuan's future skin is too white. For people who like to go to the beach, their skin is usually not too white, and it is inevitable that they will be tanned, which creates a strong contrast. It's so comfortable. Walking in front, Sifenjayuan Mirai wore sandals, stepped on the fine sand of the beach, looked at the many shells on the ground, and blew the salty cool sea breeze, feeling relaxed both physically and mentally. The feeling of seeing the sea and streams in the sunny summer is really comfortable and even more refreshing. This sea is quite beautiful. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at the sea in front of him and agreed. As for the location of this date, he decided after investigation. He previously proposed to postpone it for a week, giving him more time to prepare. Now that I'm here, I really have chosen the right place. The most taboo thing about traveling is never the noise during the process, but choosing the wrong place. If the scenery and experience are not satisfactory, even if you are in a good mood when you come, you will leave disappointed. Agwang, you really don't want to take down the maid. After sighing, Sifenjayuan Mirai turned back and glanced at the maid who was following behind, got a little closer, and whispered. In no mood. When Kurosawa noticed that she had started again, he shook his head firmly without looking back. Obviously, because of Sayaka Akai's interference just now, Mirai started to think about it again. Isn't she beautiful? Isn't her body sexy enough? Isn't it good to make her one of us? There are already so many anyway, what does it matter if we add one more? Sifenjayuan Mirai didn't understand his thinking. Don't men all think that more is better? Add as you say. It's not that easy. Kurosawa shook his head. It's easy. You don't need to chase her. For example, if you tell her that you want to sleep with me, she will definitely refuse. Then if you try to induce her, she will most likely compromise and sleep with you, and she will also fight. But you. Siphon Jiayuan saw that he hadn't turned around in the future, so he directly gave him advice. I don't want to be a bad guy. Kurosawa Hikaru felt dumbfounded when he realized that she had planned it for him and was just waiting for him to implement it. He considers himself not a good person, but he also knows clearly that he is definitely not a bad person. If you don't act like a villain, it's easy to take her down. You're so handsome. Siphon Jiayuan sees that he has a bottom line in the future and will not force it. The reason why people are human is because they have bottom lines, morals, and character. In short, I have no idea about Miss Sayaka, and I really want to take her down. It's hard to explain. Who is it hard to explain to? Ninomiya. All. Kurosawa shook his head slightly, looked at her and explained. Others don't know about his relationship with Mikibayu, and they still haven't thought of how to let them know each other. What can be expected is that even if it won't be as heartbreaking as the pain at the Budokan, it will still be a labor of pain. Although he wanted to confess to the future, today was a good day for a date, so he had better wait until then to avoid spoiling her good mood. In fact, there is one thing he hasn't said yet, and that is that he has no feelings for Miss Sayaka like those between men and women. Maybe Sayaka is indeed very beautiful, but he is not an LSP who wants to sleep with a girl when he sees her looking beautiful. If he was really an LSP, long before he was admitted to Tokyo University, he would have been chased by so many beauties from childhood to adulthood, and he would have beaten Shizuoka Prefecture to pieces with a barrage of artillery fire. Okay. Siphon Jiayuan looked up at his profile in the future, and after thinking about it, said nothing more. Even if you are honest with each other, not everything can be said. It takes time to wait. While chatting, they kept walking towards the seaside. Halfway through the journey, Kurosawa Hikaru's senses were very strong. Although he could not see in all directions and hear in all directions, he was acting with two beauties after all, so he must be on guard. As several men walked this way, not just watching curiously, but running straight towards them, Kurosawa Hikaru noticed them immediately. Those were four little gangsters who looked a bit ruffian and walked in an arrogant manner, making people want to beat them up. They were not just passing by, because their eyes kept looking here, as if they were staring at them. Same. Please strike up more conversations at the beach. Kurosawa Hikaru sighed in his heart and was thinking about how to send them away. The seaside and poolside are always lively in the summer. Because when girls wear swimsuits, no matter how conservative they are still much more exposed than regular clothes. That's why many men like to come to the beach during the season, hoping to have an affair. Although he and Xiaoyuki went to the beach twice before and were not approached, it was probably a man and a woman. It was obvious that they were a couple and others would understand. But this time the situation was different. He was alone with two beauties, and he probably irritated others. Siphon Jiayuan may rarely appear in such public places in the future, but she used to be taken by her mother to various wealthy social circles, and she soon noticed that others came to her. Mr. Kurosawa, do you know them? As the distance got closer, Akai Sayaka was completely sure that those people were not passing by, but coming straight, and she spoke. Do not know. Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head, then took 2 steps, directly blocking Mirai behind and facing him head-on. He possesses proficient leg skills and proficient boxing. He is not afraid of these little brats. Do it. But before they could even meet, Kurosawa Hikaru heard Akai Sayaka's voice from behind. As soon as they finished speaking, when the distance shortened to about 3 meters, 4 burly men in swimming trunks walked out from the surrounding crowd and blocked their way. These burly men were very tall, each over 1.8 meters tall, with strong muscles and thick arms. Such a physique is not common, and he is obviously the future bodyguard team of Siphon Jiayuan. Long time no see, let's go over there and have a chat. The 4 bodyguards stretched out their arms, grabbed the 4 ruffian men's necks, and took them away while talking and laughing. Although those ruffian gangsters were all in good shape, they were no match for the 4 professional bodyguards. They were grabbed by the neck and clamped, and their confident and calm expressions completely changed. They were frightened. "Brother, I don't know you." "Help. I don't know them." Someone could speak, and he suddenly felt that something was wrong and asked others for help. There are quite a lot of people nearby. Although the beach is very large, there are many people on the beach during the peak season. However, the social atmosphere in Neon is extremely indifferent, almost heartless, and there is no possibility of drawing a sword to help when the road is rough. When encountering danger and evil forces at work, they are afraid to avoid them. There were also discerning people who could tell that these burly men were probably protecting Kurosawa Hikari and his group, and hurriedly distanced themselves from them and got out of the way. "Your bodyguard is so professional." Kurosawa Hikaru, who stepped forward, saw this scene and felt that he had nowhere to use his strength. He turned around and said depressedly, "You looked very handsome when you stood up just now." Saifunjayuan Mirai put his hands behind his back and was in a good mood. Kurosawa's 2 steps out just now were really stunning and made her feel safe. She knew that Kurosawa's fighting ability was so strong that even Sayaka couldn't beat him. When you come out to hang out, you still have to talk about power. Kurosawa Hikaru was comforted by her, paused for a few seconds, laughed out loud, and sighed. As expected of the eldest lady of the Saifunjayuan family, ordinary people who want to say a word to the future may have to undergo interrogation. As for these ruffians who are obviously evil at first glance, they will be eliminated directly. They will be lucky to be able to take another look in the future. There is no need to kill a chicken with a big knife. There is no need to let a few gangsters dirty your hands. Sayaka Akai knew that she had ruined his chance to shine as a hero, so she spoke up at the right time. She knows better than anyone how strong Mr. Kurosawa is. Moreover, those piano-playing hands were a waste of money when used to beat up a few gangsters. Not long after, they were pulled 10 meters away. Several bodyguards of similar size stood out from the crowd and surrounded the human wall to block their sight. There was a burst of pain and wailing. "Help, it's murder. I was not ordered to come here. There is really no one behind me. I've already recruited her. I really don't know who she is. I just saw that they look pretty and wanted to go over and strike up a conversation. I don't deserve it, I don't deserve it." It was unrealistic for 6 bodyguards to block 8 people. Through the gap, 4 gangsters could be seen being pinned to the ground and beaten hard. Kurosawa Hikari, whose eyesight and hearing are both top-notch, can see clearly. Use the walkie-talkie to tell them to punch them more and let them remember the lesson and not to strike up random conversations in the future. Seeing this scene, Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and said to the maid. He didn't like this kind of person. In the future, Miss Sayaka and a grown man like him would dare to come over and strike up a conversation. I'm afraid he would strike up a conversation with some lonely girls on weekdays, just to teach him a lesson. Mr. Kurosawa asked you to punch him a few more times. Sayaka Akai picked up the walkie-talkie on her waist, pressed a button, and gave instructions. Receive. Before the walkie-talkie could be put back to his waist, a male voice responded. Ah, stop fighting. I was wrong, I'm sorry. The next moment, the movement over there became even louder. Hearing this news, Kurosawa Hikaru felt very interesting. At this moment, there was a soft feeling in his arm. Looking back, he saw Saifunjayuan Mirai hugging his arm and dragging him towards the sea. Stop looking, let's go swimming. She had a beautiful smile, and even if she saw her bodyguard beating someone, it would have no effect at all, as if she was used to it. It was a rare date, and she didn't want to waste time on this kind of thing. Good. Kurosawa Hikaru, who originally wanted to watch the show for a while, found that she was a little impatient, so he followed her. An update today. Tokyo's most affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 462. So comfortable. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't have a lifebuoy, but he lay on his back on the sea, letting the sea embrace him, and basking in the sun with his mind free. Half cool, half warm, and with blue sky and white clouds, it gave him a feeling of complete relaxation. In summer, he really wanted to take a trip to the beach, although he had already been here several times. But maybe because of his proficiency in swimming, he likes the sea very much. The sea and the sky are the same no matter where they are. Saifunjayuan Marai was lying on his back on the lifebuoy, floating beside him, his beautiful eyes reflecting the scenery of the sky. Swimming in the sea was very strenuous, and she got tired after just swimming for a while. She originally wanted to go to the beach and lie down under a sun lounger to rest, but at Kurosawa's suggestion, she rested directly on the sea. She looked up at the boundless sky, her mood was indescribable. In the past 18 years, she has looked up to the sky more than once, longing for the endless sky and the freedom of being unknown to her mother. This was obviously the case, but she went against her mother's arrangements and came to a place her mother didn't know, but she felt like it was nothing more than that. Maybe it's because she didn't get real freedom. Even though she went against her schedule and went to the beach to swim when she was supposed to be practicing archery, she was still followed by maids and bodyguards. After the exciting newness, there is a haze and emptiness that lingers. Even with the family head's business card in front of her, she was still inevitably worried that the matter would be exposed. Just when she was feeling sad, she suddenly felt something and screamed. Emerging from the sea, Kurosawa Hikaru directly pushed her up and let her ride the big horse. Agwang, what are you doing? Sitting on his shoulders, Saifunjayuan Marai clamped his legs around his neck out of instinctive fear of losing his balance, holding his head, and his messy thoughts were swept away. Do you still think the sky is the same now? Feeling the soft and elastic touch of his thighs on both sides of Kurosawa's face, he laughed and asked. Saifunjayuan Marai was stunned when he heard this. Then, she raised her head and looked up at the sky. The blue sky and white clouds cannot change in such a short period of time. This was obviously the case, but she had an incredible feeling that the scenery in the sky was even more beautiful. How smart she is, she realized it in a flash. She had seen the scenery of blue sea and blue sky more than once, but unlike previous years, she was no longer alone, but with Kurosawa Hikaru. No, the same. After coming back to his senses, Saifunjayuan realized his intentions in the future, and the feeling of sadness was gone, and he smiled instead. The feeling of seeing the same scenery alone is completely different from that of two people watching it together. The same scenery, seen in different time periods, has completely different feelings. What's the difference? Although he was carrying her, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't see her expression, but he could hear her laughter. Because sitting on your shoulders, I can see higher and farther, and the scenery is more beautiful. Saifunjayuan's future character has no stage fright or shyness at all. As he speaks, he no longer tenses up his body and relaxes his long legs. That's right. Listening to her laughter, Kurosawa Hikaru also smiled. What I just said in the future doesn't sound like much, because it is the fact that the sky and scenery at every seaside are similar. However, he was very keenly aware that his mood in the future was very confused, completely different from the excitement he felt on the way here. Maybe the maid disturbed the situation by applying sunscreen, and she was not able to experience a completely different experience, which made her feel that this time she came to the beach was similar to her previous visits to the beach. That's why, even if it's not suitable for frolics in the sea, where everyone usually plays their own game, he still wants the future to realize that he's by his side this time. Agwang, put me down. The haze was dispelled by his sneak attack. Saifunjayuan's mood changed in the future. He gently held his head, and his green-white jade fingers were like rain hitting banana trees. From the index finger to the little finger, it was like waves undulating and tapping gently. Don't you want to ride anymore? Or do you think I'm taking advantage? Kurosawa noticed her little movements and felt quite comfortable. He raised his head slightly and asked. This is not taking advantage. You secretly put your hands into my clothes before, I was afraid that you would be tired. Carrying a person on the sea is much more tiring than on the ground. Sifan gave him a blank look in the future. He really didn't know a good heart. She knew that Kurosawa was very strong and it was easy for her to ride a big horse. However, unlike a stable foothold on the ground, it is very difficult to lift a person up in the sea, and one must maintain balance and center of gravity. It's quite simple to pull someone to swim in the sea, as long as the other person doesn't move around. It's just a waste of energy. There's no secret. You obviously agreed. Kurosawa Hikaru's physical strength is very strong. He just lay down on his back for a while and got some rest. How could he be tired after such a short period of time? Moreover, the feeling of letting my girlfriend ride a big horse and ride on my shoulders is actually quite comfortable. Did I agree that time? You didn't say anything to stop it, isn't that just acquiescence? You were blocking my mouth, how could I say anything to stop you? Sifan Jiyuan saw him confusing right and wrong in the future, and was angry and funny. At that time, she was teaching Kurosawa how to kiss, but it turned out that this guy was not honest at all. Although smart girls will never argue or quarrel with their men, but some things can still be won. After all, flirting is a kind of fun for couples and is also conducive to the development of relationships. If you encounter any problem, you just tolerate it and remain silent, which is no different from cold violence. Ah, I'm cramping, cough, gilug. At this moment, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly shouted, and his body, which had remained steady, started to shake slightly. No way. Seeing this scene, Sifan Jiyuan Mirai immediately panicked. Those who drowned were all able to swim. Most of the reasons why swimmers drown are due to cramps. However, she wanted to help, but she didn't know what to do. Because in the water, when two people are entangled together, if one of them moves randomly, it will bring greater trouble to the other person. Akai, come here quickly. Sifan Jiyuan Mirai, who did not dare to move at all, forced himself to calm down in a daze. He quickly thought of a way and looked at the beach more than 10 meters away. Akai. Sifan shouted in the future, and found that the maid was motionless. He realized that his voice might be too soft, so he raised his volume and shouted. However, there is already movement when the waves hit the shore, and coupled with the noise of many people, the shouts will become very soft. However, Sayaka Akai, who was standing on the beach and watching, still noticed her expression and gaze. The next moment, Sayaka Akai ran quickly without hesitation, then dived and swam over quickly. At the same time, as Kurosawa Hikaru continued to sink, Shifunjin Mirai's body was finally covered by most of the water. She hurriedly loosened her legs and let herself float by swimming. Agwang, are you okay? No longer holding him down, Sifan Jiyuan Mirai also hurriedly shouted. Immediately afterwards, she discovered that Kurosawa Hikaru still had not surfaced, and there were still bubbles of water popping up in front of her, so she wanted to dive to save people. But at this moment, there was a crash, and Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly emerged from the water. I'm fine, don't panic. Kurosawa put his palm down on his forehead, opened his eyes and smiled, without looking like he was choked by the water. You're still laughing, I'm scared to death by you. When Sifan Jiyuan saw him smiling in the future, he was stunned for a moment, then suddenly came to his senses and went over to beat him to vent his anger. Didn't I tell you before I went into the water? It's easy for me to hold my breath for 10 minutes underwater. Kurosawa Hikaru took advantage of the opportunity to hold her in his arms and smiled. The biggest advantage of men and women going swimming on a date is that unlike the ground, which everyone is familiar with, the feeling in the water is relatively unfamiliar, which makes people feel insecure and can easily shorten the distance between people. Don't joke like this. Bad guy. Siphon Yuan's future was like a fish being held in a hug and struggling wildly. She was really scared to death just now. Okay, I'll listen to you. Kurosawa Hikaru saw her face pale and frightened, and felt guilty. He hugged her tightly and coaxed her in a good voice. He just thought that a good man would not fight with a woman or argue with her. It happened that she was afraid that he would be tired and wanted to come down, so he simply made a joke with her. He didn't even use his acting skills, he just did it casually. Who knew he would frighten her like this? Next time, I will strangle you to death. As he comforted him, Siphon Yuan Mirai gradually calmed down, but he was still frightened by the lesson. He angrily stretched out his hand under the water and pinched him. Ah, yes. This pinch can be said to be holding the emperor hostage to the princes. Kurosawa felt both pain and happiness, but he did not talk nonsense, but cooperated obediently. Snored. Seeing his expression, Siphon Yuan smiled proudly in the future, and blood appeared on his pale face, which was a look of shame. Miss, what are your orders? At this moment, Sayaka Akai swam over. It's okay, and don't go ashore. Just follow us in the sea. Otherwise, if something unexpected happens, standing so far away waiting for you to save people, they will all drown. Shifunjin Mirai was held in Kurosawa Hikaru's arms, turned to look at her, thought of the situation just now, and ordered. Although the maid's swimming skills are very good, she has been professionally trained and is much better than her amateur. But when danger comes, it's a race against time. Who can be protected from such a long distance? It just so happens that if the maid goes to the sea, she can also be allowed to play for a while. Yes. Akai Sayaka had no complaints and did not say that the reason why she stood so far away was because she was afraid of disturbing them.